Am I? Hello, everyone. Hello, guys. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Am I audible, guys? Am I visible? Please give me a confirmation. Hello, everyone. Hi. Hi, everyone. Perfect. Good evening. Good evening, Manmohan. Good evening, Arka. Hello. Hi, Zad. Hi, Kumar. Hi, everyone. Hello, guys. I hope all of you are doing very well. And we will just start in few minutes. We will wait 1 or 2 minutes for rest of the people to join. And let's, in the meantime, try to revise what we discussed in our previous class. Walaikum salam, Najam. Good evening, Pawani. Good evening. Hello, Sagar. Hi, Pradnya. Hello. Hi, Ankit. Good evening. Good evening, guys. So let's try to quickly understand what we have discussed until now and what we are going to discuss in today's class. Salam Ali Raza Salam. In our previous class, I would say our few previous classes have been very fantastic classes, very important classes. Why? Because we have discussed most of the important topics, whether we talk about functions and whether we talk about arrays. In our previous class, if we quickly try to revise what we have discussed some of the very important topics. Hi, Usman. Some of the very important methods related to our arrays. And in today's class, our agenda would be to complete the same arrays, but also we are going to complete the objects as well. Because I think it has been already enough time since we have started basic constructs, basic concepts, foundation of JavaScript. Now it's time to actually switch to web development back and connect this particular JavaScript that we have learned with the web development. That's what our plan is now going to be. But today's class will be the last class related to understanding JavaScript, pure JavaScript related to objects. So that's what our today's agenda is going to be. And it's very important for us to understand that today's class is also one of the very important classes, very mandatory classes in which we are going to discuss our JavaScript objects properly. You might have heard, if you have already discussed JavaScript before, or if you even have 10% of experience, you might have already heard that when we talk about JavaScript, we say everything is an object, right? And that's what our today's agenda is going to be, to understand that what that object actually is going to be. Hi, Dhanashri. Likewise, Sadi. Hello, Sukhjot. Good evening. Hello, Priyanka. Hi. So let's not waste our any more time. I think we have already wasted 2 minutes of time. So let's try to start our discussion again and let's start properly our class. So I need a quick confirmation from all of your side. Please tell me quickly, shall we start our class? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Yes or no? Shall I start my class? Hi, Prince. Hi. Everyone, please, I want every one of you to type yes or no in the chat quickly. Perfect. Let's start our class properly. As I said, that we have to start our JavaScript objects, but there are few things that we have not discussed in arrays. So we will give 10 to 20 minutes to arrays first, and then we will actually start our JavaScript objects properly. The first topic that we are going to discuss over here is to understand what separate and rest operator actually mean. Okay. Let me create a new file over here with the name of array4.js. Okay. And please make sure that if you have any confusion, you let me quickly know what actually the confusion is. Okay. So please pay attention here. So let my ARR is equals to, let's define an array 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are two operators that you will see in JavaScript arrays, or in those objects that are iterable. By that I mean either whether we talk about arrays or whether we talk about objects. Two operators which you will very often see. Number one is called separate operator. And separate operator is represented actually by three dots. So dot, dot, dot. So whenever you write dot, dot, dot anywhere, it means the intention is to use separate operator. But on the other hand, if I write, there's one other operator called as rest operator. And do you know the symbol, the syntax of rest operator is actually also dot, dot, dot. So what do we mean by separate operator? What do we mean by rest operator? And if both of these operators are actually represented by dot, 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 what is the difference actually? Let's try to understand that. And in order to give you a complete idea of separate and rest operator, the best example will be to understand these two operators using functions. Okay, what do we mean by that? Let's suppose I will define a function, and that function name is add, in which it receives three arguments. Let's suppose x comma y comma z, and what it's supposed to do is it's simply supposed to console.log x plus y plus z. This is what it's supposed to do, simple as that. Now after that, I will simply go here and I will simply call my add. And in add, what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to pass numbers 4, 5, 6. Or instead of this, let me pass 3, 4, 5. Right? And let me remove these two items as of now. And if I try to execute this particular code, you can clearly see it's going to give me an output quickly, which is 12, right? Because 3 plus 4 is 7, 7 plus 5 is 12. Very good. But don't you think that the values that you are trying to pass, they are actually already part of an array? Yes or no? The values that I have passed in this case, 3, 4, 5, they are already defined in an array. And let's suppose the arguments that you are trying to pass are actually part of an array which you have. It is actually how your program is created. Let's take an example like that. Let's suppose that in this particular case, what I will do is, this is what I will talk to myself. Always talk to yourself. Okay, so I have an add function where I want to pass three arguments, and I already have them inside an array called as ARR. So why don't I simply tell my program here, hey, you already have a data variable ARR, simply separate the values of ARR over here. Separate means fehlau. So I will simply dot ARR. What does that actually mean? It means I am not telling it to actually put array here. No, it never means that. It means whatever the values inside that array are, separate them here. Separate. That's what separate operator means. So whenever your intention in your program is to separate the values in your program, in that particular case, dot becomes a separate operator, not rest operator. So we all can understand one analogy here. What is that? That my intention is that I do not care about the array. Array is what the container structure is covering is, but actually the values inside that array is I want to separate them. So that's what dot ARR mean. It means whatever the values of ARR are, simply separate them here. So it will separate 3, 4, 5. And in this case, if I simply try to execute, let's see what will be the output. And you can clearly see it's 12 again. So if I simply go, maybe let me change this value. So 33, 4, 5. And of course, if I try to execute it, the output will be 42 over here because that's what the values are. So this is what we mean by separate operator. Let's talk about one another example. Since we understood what separate operator mean, let's try to take an example. Okay. Of course, even if they are, always remember, let me simply create more elements like this. Even in this case, if I try to execute it like this, it will always take the first three elements. And it is not related to arrays, just it's related to normal as well. Like normal behavior of functions also like that. If I simply call it 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, let's suppose something like this. What does that mean? That means I am passing these many arguments. But of course, it's going to map only first three over there. So that is normal JavaScript concept. That's not related to separate operator, Manmohan. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Now let's understand the same separate operator normally without functions. Let's suppose I will simply go create another array, ARR2 is equals to. I will simply write dot ARR. Do you think this is a valid operation? Yes or no? Dot ARR. Is this a valid operation? Hello, Govin. I would say absolutely not. Why? Because there is one confusion that student actually create in their mind, which is when we write dot ARR, you guys think that it is actually I am telling you to separate, take the whole array and put it here, whatever the array is. No. This dot ARR actually mean whatever the values inside that are, take those and separate them. Now over here, I have simply told it ARR2 is equals to separate them. So it will be 33, 4, 5, 4, 5, so on and so forth. Is this how you create any type of variable? Of course not. That's why there is an error. So over here, we have to actually give it what? We have to actually give it square brackets. Why? Because now it will simply treat the separated values over there as an array. Let me try to reduce few of the values. Let me try to remove few of the values. And if I try to console.log my ARR2, you can clearly see it has actually created copy of it. So you can clearly see ARR2 is actually a copy of it. That's what I'm here for, right, Prathimesh? I will actually remove the confusion that you have. Don't worry about it. Let me come to rest operator in 2 minutes. You will automatically understand what rest operator is about. Give me 2 minutes only, okay? Now see, what will happen if I simply write something like this? Do you think this is a valid operation, guys? Quickly. Do you think this is a valid operation? Yes or no? Of course, yes, right? Because of course it is going to simply separate these values here, and the rest of the values will be part of the array. So this is also a valid operation. So over here, separate operator, put it in your mind. It is simply that I have a data that is iterable in nature. Now, whatever those values are, I simply want to separate them. The values, not the data type itself. That's what separate operator means. Let me give you one another very important aspect of separate operator. Okay, let's suppose I will simply go, let me remove separate operator. Let's suppose I am not dealing with separate operator, and this is one of the very important interview questions as well. Over here we will discuss one of the very important topic called as deep copy and shallow copy. Okay, let's suppose I will create my arr2 is equals to, and I will write arr. Very good. And in this case I am simply going to console my arr2 like this. And if I try to execute this particular code, you can clearly see my ARR2 actually is the copy of my ARR, because I directly assigned ARR2 with ARR. Very good, very wonderful. Now, what is the issue when we try to create copy like this? What is the issue at that point of time? The issue is, in this case, if I simply tell it ARR2 add the index of 3, please update that with adfer, let's suppose. Okay, I've simply overwritten the value 34 with the adfer. And of course, if I try to console it, you can clearly see adfer2 is 34 is updated with adfer. But on the other hand, if I try to console my ARR over here, and in this case, if I try to execute this, you can clearly see, even though the change was supposed to be of ARR2, but it also affected my original ARR as well. Do you understand what's happening over here? Do you understand what's happening over here? When I directly assigned ARR2 with ARR, then if I make a change in ARR2, it is actually affecting my ARR as well, even though I did not want that. In a similar way, if I try to make a change in ARR instead of ARR2, it is also going to affect both. Now, what is this particular concept called? Tell me quickly in the chat. But before I do that, let me try to make you understand what actually is happening over here. I know that when I create this memory, when I create this variable, in memory, it's going to create an array with all of its values that we have. And that values, this particular memory slot, this particular ARR that I have created will have an address, whatever that address is. Now, when I am actually creating over there ARR2 is equals to ARR, it means on some other place inside my memory, another memory location will be created with the name of ARR2. But what is my intention? My intention is that the values inside the ARR2 should be exactly same of ARR. But that's not what happens. That's not what happens. In this case, what it actually does is, whenever you directly assign two variables with respect to each other in terms of arrays, especially in terms of arrays, this does not happen in terms of primitive data types, only in non-primitive data types. This ARR2 does not actually copy the values, but actually it links itself with the address of ARR. This is also called call by reference, if you might have heard that. So basically, we are copying over there not the values, but actually it holds the address of the ARR. That is why when you make a change over here, it is not making change inside the values, but it is making change inside the address. And what is that address? That address is of actually ARR. That's why both ways actually it works. Whether you make a change in ARR, it is getting affected in ARR2. Whether you make a change in ARR2, it gets affected in ARR as well. This is called shallow copy or deep copy. What is it called? What is it called? A lot of people are saying deep copy. Very good, right? And this is also called call by reference. Now, how do we actually resolve it? The one of the best answers over there is, instead of copying directly the reference, the address of that memory location, we can directly tell it, please separate the values here. So separate operator is also one of the solutions to it. One of the solutions to it. All the separate operator has limitation in objects, which we will even see in today's class as well. Now if I try to execute it, you can clearly see, as soon as I execute it, now both of the objects, sorry, arrays that we have created, they are independent of each other. They don't affect each other over here. This is called a shallow copy. Am I clear? Am I clear, guys? Done? Perfect. I hope this is also clear. Also, my separate operator is used to concat two arrays. Let's suppose I have ARR2 over here with values which is 5, 6, 7, 8. And now I will simply go at ARR3. And then this ARR3 actually will be simply concatenation of two arrays called as dot 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 ARR2. And now if I simply go try to execute my ARR3, you can clearly see over there what we actually have. We have updated our ARR3 by concatenating two values, right? Because there it takes values. Exactly, Vikash, right? It takes values. Very good. Fantastic. Now, if I try to execute it, you can clearly see what it has done is it has actually created copy of concatenation of these two. So if you want to concatenate two arrays, if interviewer asks you, hey, concatenate two arrays, there are two methods. One is to use concat method, which I have showed you in the previous class. Another one is we can separate them values and put a comma as separate, and it will concatenate. So I hope you have actually understood what separate operator is. Am I clear? What separate operator is? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat, everyone. Now let's try to understand what rest operator is. Let's quickly try to understand that. Let me try to comment this code. If we have understood separate operator as the name itself says, separate. काफी फैला हुआ business है, right? That's what separate operator means. Let me go here. Let me try to make you understand what actually rest operator means. So I will simply create an ARR is equals to, and I will simply say 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's suppose this is what my array is. Even let's suppose 5. Very good. After that, I will simply define a function. Function name will be add. Very good. Like this. Now, over here, the whole agenda is to actually understand how we can pass indefinite number of arguments to a function. That's what whole agenda is. And that's what we are supposed to prove over here. How can we actually create rest operator over there, make proper usage of it? This is what we have to understand. And please pay close attention. And rest operator is not just about arrays. Okay, leave this arrays even aside for a second as well. I will call this function. Okay, let's suppose I'm simply going to call this function add, and I am going to pass indefinite number of arguments, whatever the arguments are. Now, there are a lot of values, right? There's 2, there's 3, there's 4, and there can be more values over there. Now, my agenda at this point of time is to not separate the values, to not separate a data type into multiple values. No, but there are already multiple values. My agenda is to pack them. And how do we pack multiple values? We pack multiple values with help of a rest operator. So I will simply go say dot dot dot. Let's say rest or whatever the name of the identifier is. That does not matter. I will write dot 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 and dot 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 add for dot 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 anything. It's an identifier. So what have I done in this case? In this case, the agenda is to gather all the remaining arguments of this particular function call, but the answer is into an array. Into an array. That is the most important thing. Which means if I go over here and try to console.log my rest variable over here, the identifier that I have. So in this case, let's see what it prints, because I have called the add function over there, and if I execute it, we all can agree that it has packed the values over there into what? Into an array that we have. This is what we mean by rest operator. And there are not too many applications of it, but yes, there are applications of it. Separate operators used everywhere, but rest operator is not used that much, but it is used. So you should have an idea over there. So what I am doing is I'm simply packing the indefinite number of arguments, packing the number of arguments into an array. Whenever you do such thing, in that particular case, we say we have used REST operator. Even though representation is same, but application is completely different. I hope it makes sense. Am I clear? Am I clear? Yes or no? Am I clear? Now, let me give you one another example of REST operator, okay, to give you an idea of what REST operator actually means. Let's suppose I have created an array in which I will simply try to destructure them. Now, what do we mean by destructuring? Let's understand that. I have defined an A is equals to an array, and it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, my agenda is to put 1 in A, 2 in B. So basically, I'm trying to destructure different values of our array into different variables. This is what I want. This is what I actually can arguments be of course, since it is dynamic typed Priyanka, we have already discussed that JavaScript is dynamic typed. So even if you put adfer in between over it, it makes complete sense. We don't have any issues with that. Even let me show you example of that in few seconds as well. This is what I want. I simply want to do some logic there, write some coding there that will make sure A is stored in one, B over here, C over here, D over here, E over here, F over here, which means I simply want to assign, destructure the values of my array into multiple variables. That's what I want. Okay, let's understand how we can create that. Let me try to reduce the number of values here. I will simply go create destructuring like this. So let A is equals to this, comma, B, comma, C. Okay. And in this particular case, I will simply say console.log A over here, and let's see what the output of this code is going to be, what it will print in this particular A. This concept is called destructuring, so please pay attention. Okay, we will do that. Of course, we can do that. Pratimesh, I will even show you that as well. That's what my plan is. So if I try to execute it, we can clearly see A became 1. Yes or no? Very wonderful. In a similar way, if I go here, if I try to say console.log v and then make this B, let me make this C over here, we all can understand that at this point of time over here, A became 1, B became 2, C became 3. This is a valid syntax in JavaScript. It's called a destructuring. What's it called? Destructuring. Sometimes we have very big array and we want to simply use one value out of that array very often. So what we do is we simply assign an identifier to that value. So in that particular case, we can use destructuring over here. So destructuring means mapping different values of array to different identifiers, and that's what we have done. I hope this makes sense. Now let's suppose I am interested in, like, this is my values, this is my array. In this case, I will simply go write comma. I will write dot x. What does this dot x actually mean? This dot x in this case simply means whatever the rest of the values are, simply pack them into x. This is what rest operator means. Whatever the rest of the values are, pack them into x. And in this case, let's try to execute our x. So if I go write console.log my x over here, we all can see my x is nothing but actually an array. So this is what we mean by rest operator, not separate operator. Because I am not fehlating the values of x. I am packing the values of x, the values into x. Do you understand the difference? If it would have been that there is already x an array created which contains value and I am trying to separate them, then in that case it would have been separate operator. But right now I already have values and now I am trying to pack them. That's what we actually mean by this. I hope it makes sense, right? This is what separate operator mean. Now someone said, sir, can we write some logic over there with help of which it does not matter how many arguments we have, it should give me some of this particular array, some of this whole thing. Can I right now say one point, and please confirm in the chat quickly? Can I say that it does not matter how many arguments I have over here? Eventually, when I try to pack them into rest, this rest is going to be an array. Yes or no? Of course, yes, sir. We have seen that it simply converts the values, packs them into an array. Very good. But do we know any such method that we might have discussed in our previous class? And I need to see few answers in the chat. Have we seen any such methods over here with help of which if we have an array, we can reduce it to a single value? We can reduce it to a single value. Have we seen such method? If we have, please put that in the chat. What is that particular array method that we can implement on an array, and then it can simply give me and reduce the array into a single value? And the answer is absolutely correct. Please also, yes, please like this video if you can. So the method is called reduce. So what I will do is I will simply go here. I will simply say let my sum is equals to what? The rest that I have, since it's an array, on this, please implement reduce. Now, once you implement reduce, I know it's going to receive multiple arguments. Number one is total, comma, number two is item, right? And then I will simply tell it, please return what? Total plus sum. And the initial value of my actually array is what? 0. The initial value of total is 0. No issues, Rohit. Please make sure you stay up till end now. So this is what we have actually seen in our previous class as well, right? And now if I try to console.log my sum, we all can go now in the output, and let me try to comment this much of code at least right now. And if I try to execute it, it says there's an error. So it says sum. Okay, this is not total dot plus sum, it's total plus item, right? Yes. So now if I try to execute it, we can clearly see that if I check, it is 55. And it does not matter how many values you now put there. It is going to go over there and implement the same logic, because everything from here will be packed into a rest over there, rest operator. And we can now implement reduce on that array. And if I try to execute it, it will give me some of that. I hope this is also clear, right? Very good. With this, we have completed our arrays properly. Yes, there is one topic still left, which is called for off loop. But we will discuss for off loop later on, once we first of all discuss what actually objects are, because over there we have to discuss for in loop. And then we will see what is the difference between for off and for in loop. That's why I'm going to discuss it later on. Now, Govind says, what is the type of rest? Let's try to print it. Of course, at this point of time, if you see, if I say type of, what is type of, by the way? You can clearly visualize it as well. It is array. And when we say array, at that point of time, it gives us object, right? So if I execute it, it gives me object. For each, we have already seen in our previous class, Lavi. We have already seen that. Okay. So reduce, we have already discussed, Rohit, in our previous class. I think we can see it there as well. We have properly understood what reduce does, right? So basically, whenever we say reduce, it accepts this particular callback function and the initial value of total, and then it implements it on the array, and we simply get the output, right? I hope this makes sense. Okay, done? Perfect. Let us move forward and let's actually start our today's class's agenda. That is object. You give me one liner of what you understand when anyone tells you what is an object. So object 1.js. So let's now jump to objects, and I will show you few of the methods. I'm pretty much sure even if you know objects, you might have not seen them. You might have not discussed them, but they do exist, and that's what we are going to discuss in today's class. Okay. So what do you understand by an object? Very good. Very good, Govind. Objects are nothing but actually key value pairs, right? Very fantastic. Very good. Instance of a class. We don't know what class is, so we will not go into class. Object-oriented programming will be discussed after DOM. So let's not talk about class right now. Objects that has key value pairs. Very good, very fantastic. Okay. When we say, if you ask me, I would say objects are nothing but those entities in this world that have properties and values associated with them. What do I mean by that? For example, me, I am an object. My properties: name Adfar, age 26, right? Height 6 feet, right? And my color is brown. I have eyes color black. So all of those real entities that exist in this universe that have properties, and with them they have values. Now, if we want to model such entities into a data structure, we have a data structure called as objects. And that object is represented in terms of key value pairs only. That's what object is. Simply key value. This pen, it is an object. How? it is this much long, it has a color, it has a weight, it is we are able to write. And when we say the properties, it's not necessary that those properties will be just some values. By that I mean color is equals to red, red is a value, no, but the values can be actually what this object can do, which means methods. For example, it can write. So when we say write key, what does it actually do? So it can have functions as well, it can have methods as well, but those methods will be also represented in terms of key value pairs. Let's not discuss that much over here with respect to objects what they are, because you are automatically going to understand that. But let's create a very basic example of it. The basic example is I will simply create a variable called as obj. And always remember, objects are identified and created with curly braces, and there are multiple ways of creating object. As of now we will see only one, then later on we will see constructor functions, we will see factory functions, we will see new constructor. Okay, all of those we'll see later on. And let's suppose name is equals to John, age is equals to 30, and then we will simply say city is equals to New York. Although the suggestion that it has given is this is JSON, we don't have name, keys over there double quoted in pure JavaScript object. That's not how it works. And when we talk about this, it is an object over there, because this data structure represents key value pairs: name John, age 30, New York. And now if I try to go right, say console.log my obj, and if I try to execute it, we all can see object in the output with name John, age 30, and city New York. Very good, fantastic. Now if I have to access a single property out of it, always remember there are two ways. In order to access a single property out of an object over there are two ways. First way is we can simply on that variable we can use dot notation. So obj dot and then whatever the key name is. So if I say obj dot name, we all can see over here which is John. Done. In a similar way over here, what we can do is we can simply go and understand obj dot age. And in this case, if I execute it, we can also see 30 as well. So this is one way of accessing our properties using dot notation. Remember, in our arrays, we can access the values using indexes, although we don't have indexes over there. But over here, we have one another way of accessing our object property. So console.log obj, then square bracket. Then inside the square bracket, key name, whatever the key name is. So in this case, let me simply say city. But this key name has to be wrapped into double quotes. So you can also access a key value over there of an object with a square bracket as well. But in that square bracket, you don't have to write 0, 1, 2 like the index number. No, but we have to write the key value, key name over there by wrapping them into double quotes. So now if I simply go over there and execute it, we can clearly see it gives me New York. These are the two ways of accessing a property over here. I hope this makes sense. Am I clear? Done. Is there a way of overwriting the property of an object directly? Is there a way of overwriting the property of an object? Of course, yes. I will simply go write obj dot. Give me a second. I have a call. Okay, give me a second only. Okay, so I'm back. So maybe I might receive a call. Give me 1 minute at that point of time. I will come back. Okay. So what difference at this point of time? I don't see any difference. But if there is any difference, Lavi, I will get back to you and I will let you know whether there is any limitation to any of the accessible ways or not. Give me a second. I have a call. I will be back very quickly. Okay. This might. Hello. Hi guys, hi everyone, I'm back. Okay, so we have understood this way of accessing a property, how we can access a property. Now, can we overwrite a property directly? Of course we can. So I can simply go here, I can simply tell obj.name is equals to, and then I can simply tell it adfar. And in this case, if I try to access this name over here and go in the output and execute it, you can clearly see it gives me answer. So we can override a property. Can we create a new property over here? Let's suppose if you look at this object, there's name, there's age, there's t. But can I create one other property over here? So in this case, I can simply go write obj dot. Let's suppose I simply want to write salary is equals to what? Salary is equals to, let's suppose, 4,000 here. Is this properly allowed? And if it is, it should give me the output. And if I try to execute it, we can clearly see 4,000 over it, which means even if the property is not created already, you can create a new property by directly creating a property on the object itself. And in this case as well, if I try to execute my obj, and then if I try to go over and execute it, we can clearly see there's a salary property with the value 4,000, whatever the value is. I hope this makes sense. So we are able to create, update, and now let's try to understand delete. How can we delete a property? In order to delete a property, we can use a very specific keyword called as delete over there. So delete what? Obj dot, let's suppose, age. I am over here very clear that I want to delete this particular key, which is obj.age. So this is how you can delete any particular key over here. And if I try to execute it over here, you can clearly see now the object that we have, it does not contain the age key over here. I hope it makes sense as well. I hope we are clear with these basic operations. Now, these operations, I am pretty much sure you already would know all of these if you have done objects in any time. But now, similar to our, we will come back. We will discuss that, Manmohan, properly what this keyword means. Of course, that is the most important keyword in JavaScript. We will definitely discuss that. Until now, all of these things are how we can create object, how we can create property, update property, delete property. And in our arrays as well, we might have done the same thing as well. But then we actually understood the beauty lies in the methods of arrays. Similarly, over here, we have to discuss few of the methods. What are those methods? Let's try to understand them one by one. One of the very used, very important methods inside objects are obj.object.keys. Okay. What do we mean by object.keys? Before that, let's understand one of the very important thing, which is whenever I talk about our JavaScript objects, this object is nothing but actually a data structure itself, which means it's an entity. And in a similar way over there, when we talk about entities, JavaScript has a picture of it. Like JavaScript knows what object is, how object is created. Because JavaScript, everything in JavaScript is an object. So when we write object over here, there is actually a keyword that actually represents object. So object, the object non-primitive data type that you have. Over there's a method, a prototype method called as keys. Now over here, I will pass an argument which is the object that actually we want. In this case, it's obj. But what does object.keys actually represent? What does it do? Always remember, it's about what it returns. Whenever we talk about object.keys and we pass the object to it on whatever object we want to implement it, it will return an array. Note that point very well over here. So let me create, let my arr is equals to, it will return an array. But what will that array contain? The array will contain all the object property names. So whatever the property names are, so if I try to say console.log arr, and if I try to execute it, we can clearly see now we have an array, and that array contains keys over the properties over there. So object.keys actually return an array of keys. A very important method, and it is used very often inside our web development. Very often. So this is one of the methods that I will use in React as well. I will use in DOM as well. I will use everywhere almost. Whenever there's array, whenever there's object, these methods are used. So remember to note this down on your rough copy. Let's suppose I will simply go create one other key over here, which is salary. Salary is equals to colon, and then salary is equals to 5,000. If I try to execute it, what will my ARR contain? all these four key value pairs. And if I try to execute it, we can clearly see name, age, city, salary. Similar to this object dot keys, we have one another method called as object dot values. So this will be array of keys. And in a similar way, let me try to print this array of keys. In a similar way, there's one another method that is going to also return array, but those array will be array of values. Array of values. And it is going to be equal to what? It's going to be equal to object dot keys, sorry, values over here. So we have one another very important method called as object dot values. It receives one of the arguments on whatever object you actually want it to be implemented. So now if I try to go over here and try to console.log my ARR values here, and in this case, if I try to execute it, we can clearly see now we have two arrays. What does it actually mean? It means in my JavaScript, if there is an object, we can actually convert that object into two arrays. One array will simply contain keys, another array will contain values over there. That's why, remember, that's why I told you arrays are the most important thing in web development. Because even if we have JavaScript objects, we can deal with JavaScript objects through arrays as well. And that's what these two methods do. Fantastic methods, very beautiful methods. So note these methods properly. So what does object.keys do? Object.keys return array of keys, object.values return array of values. But on the other hand, there's a third method inside the same category, and that is object.entries. Let's try to see what it returns. Also, it returns an array. So ARR entries is equals to object.entries. And then it receives an argument, whatever the object name is. And in this case, I will simply try to console ARR entries. What does object.entries return? They return an array of given object key value pair. They return array, but that array will actually contain inside more arrays. And every individual item will itself be an array of key value pair. This is what I mean. If I try to execute it, we can clearly see I have received multi-dimensional array. Multi-dimensional array. And that multi-dimensional array means that individual items are themselves actually arrays. And those individual items are the key value pair, which is name John, age 30, city New York, salary 5,000. So in whatever the key value pair is, simply put that in an array. Now, how fantastic this method is. Which means the whole object can be actually visualized in as array as well. And that's what makes this objects and arrays fantastic as well. I hope this method is completely clear. Am I clear with this method, guys? Am I clear? Right? Yes or no? Am I clear? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Everyone, perfect. I think I am completely clear. Now there are few methods. If you remember few seconds back, I actually showed you multiple ways of modifying the properties of our application. Okay. Do we have a way with the help of which we can actually limit that? By limit that, I simply mean I simply want to declare an object, but I have a requirement in my web application that once this object is created, I want to freeze it. By freezing, I simply mean I simply want later on, once it is created, after that, new properties should not be added. And if there are already existing properties, they should not be removed or modified. And if I want such thing, there is a method. So over here, let me create one another file with the name of obj objects2.js. And over here, let me create an object quickly. So let my obj is equals to, and over here, I will simply say name John. Let's go and make age is equals to 26. Done. And let me simply go and create one other property. Let's say, what was the another one? It was salary. So let's say salary over there is equals to 4,000, a string 4,000. Finally, I will simply say my address, although address can be object as well, which I will come later on. But at this point of time, let's see only one dimensional objects. So over here, I will simply say city, and city is going to be Srinagar. Done. Perfect. Great. Now I know in order to create a new property out of it, I will simply go right obj dot. Let's suppose the another property which I have is height. Height is equals to what? Height is equals to 4.5. Absolutely, it's correct. Because if I go right console.log my obj and if I try to execute it, we all can see that this height is properly being added on the object. Done. Very good. Fantastic. Done. Perfect. On the other hand, I can also go there and I can also see that I will be able to update my salary as well. So if I try to execute in this case and if I try to print my obj, you can clearly see salary is updated to 4.5. So it allows me both things. Even I can delete as well. But now over here, I will implement a property. From the same prototype, which is object, I will simply implement a method called as freeze. You might have seen those movies. Freeze, freeze officer, freeze this, right? That's what this means. Freeze. Whatever you are, freeze at that point over there. Now it receives an argument which is our object name. Now, if I try to execute this particular code over here, we can clearly see, even though I try to make an updation there to my object, but I'm not able to see that updation. Object.salary 4.5, it does not work. My salary is still 4,000. And even if I go here, if I try to say obj dot, let's suppose I will create one other property, which is height in this case, and height is equals to 5.7. And if I try to execute it, let's try to see whether it will work or not. And if I try to execute it, no, there's no height property. This is what we mean by freeze. So if you ever have that situation, if you ever have that requirement that you have created an object, and once you have created the object, you simply want to freeze it. You don't want any modifications in it. You don't want any updations in it. You don't want any deletion in it. In that particular case, simply use a method called as freeze method. Now, with respect to freeze, inside this particular category, there's also one related method. And that method is called seal. So let's go over and let's try to understand the seal method. Okay, what does seal method actually do? So let me quickly try to console this and let me try to comment it out. And I will go here and let's understand what seal method do. Seal method means my intention is to seal an object, which means, remember the difference between freeze and seal is, this might be asked in interviews for a fresher. For an experience, this question is not asked, but for a fresher, it might be asked. What is the difference between seal and freeze method of object? Seal an object means my intention is to simply prevent new properties from being added. I don't want new properties to be added inside this particular object. But yes, if there are any existing properties, I am going to allow them to be modified. Do you understand the difference between freeze and seal? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Freeze means if it is freeze, no modification is allowed, no updation is allowed, no new creation is allowed. But if we talk about our seal method, seal method simply means no new property will be created. But if there is already a created property, the modifications are allowed. Sumit Sharma is asking a question. Can anyone tell me, Kis? You have to join our WhatsApp group. Over there, every day, whenever we have class, I share the update. So you need to join our WhatsApp group. Please do that. If you don't have any link, guys, please share the invite link of our WhatsApp over here in the chat. Anyone, go to the WhatsApp, copy the invite link, and put it here. Over there, you will receive updations. Unfortunately, you won't be part of our batch related to interviews and all that stuff. But yes, you can get all the updates there. Again, let me repeat again. Govind, tell me quickly. I had created an object here. Then I try to freeze it. What does freeze mean? Freeze means at that point of time, whatever my object is, I cannot actually allow any property to be updated now. There's no modification that's allowed. On the other hand, freeze also means that if once object is created and you have freezed it, no new properties will be allowed. So no modification, no deletion, no updation. Okay, that's what freeze means. On the other hand, if I talk about my seal method, let's try to see seal method. So let me go over and let me try to say object dot seal. Okay, and this seal it's going to seal my obj. Okay, now what does seal actually mean? Seal means let me try to create new property. So object dot height is equals to height is equals to, let's suppose over there 4.5. And if I try to go console.log my obj and let me try to print it. So am I actually modifying the already created property? No, I'm not modifying the already created property, but I am creating a new property, adding a new property, and you can clearly see it's not allowed. Object.height is not part of obj. But on the other hand, if I simply tell it, please update my salary. And in this case, if I execute it, you can clearly see salary is allowed to be updated. So this is the difference between freeze and seal. Give me a quick confirmation in the chat whether we understood this or not. Quickly. Quickly. Very good. Very good. So I hope we have understood the difference between object.seal and object.freeze as well. Now let's move a little bit forward. There are 3-4 properties more which we will discuss, and then we will close our objects discussion. We will start one another new discussion. Okay, let's understand one very important property which is called object.assign. Okay, what does assign actually mean? Okay, what does assign actually mean? If your intention is to copy all enumerable properties, but I am using a very important term over there, which is enumerable. Sir, what is enumerable? We don't know what enumerable is. Enumerable, when we say that this object is having properties and few of the properties are enumerable, few of them are not, it means the properties through which we can iterate, we can loop. If they are, once we implement a loop on this object, for in loop later on we will see, if I am able to iterate on those properties, which means the properties are enumerable. If I'm not able to iterate over those properties, it means I won't be able to call them enumerable. Now let's see a very simple example of that, because of course, sir, we don't know what we actually mean by that, like iterable. We don't know that, right? Let's understand that. Over here, I will copy this particular object, and let's understand this very important term. I remember I was once sitting in an interview and I was very fresher at that point of time, and I was asked this question: "Hey, explain enumerable." And by default, what is enumerable for every object? That was the question. I even have not heard enumerable at that point of time, and after that, I learned enumerable quickly. So let me create this object. I have this object now. On this particular object, I simply want to iterate. Now remember, there is a very predefined loop that we have that we can use on objects so that we can iterate over them. Okay, we can iterate over them. I have for in loop. Okay, for of loop, I will come to that. I will simply say let my I in. Let I in what? Obj. Done. What does it actually mean? This type of loop is called for in loop. A very important loop, especially used on objects. And we use this particular loop so that we can iterate on objects one by one. And let me try to console.log I. Let's see what will go inside this I. Okay. I don't want to do anything else, but I want to understand what I is. Because somehow I am telling it for start a loop in which I is the iterable, like the variable that you're going to loop on what object. So what does this I actually mean in this case? So if I execute this, we can clearly see it gives me the property names. So which means it has actually started a loop on this object, where in first loop I became name, in second loop I became age, in third loop I became salary, in fourth loop I became city. So can I say, give me a quick confirmation in chat, can I say right now all the properties are iterable? Because all of the properties we can see in the output, which means all of the properties are enumerable. Understand this very important point. Always remember, enumerable simply means properties can be enumerable or non-enumerable. And by default behavior of all the properties that are created like this, they are enumerable. they are enumerable no matter what. Okay. Now, enumerable simply means if you are able to iterate on them, very good. It means it is enumerable. And we can, of course, over here, you can clearly see we can enumerate on them. And now, since I am getting it, I can also print it, right? I can go and I can print obj at the index of I, right? And now, if I try to execute it, we can clearly see name, John, age, 26, salary, 4,000, city, Srinagar. So, which means I am able to iterate over them. So, what's the answer? The answer is by default, all the properties in an object, if they are created like this, they are enumerable in nature. But question that might be asked to you is there a way with help of which you can define a property for an object which you can make non-enumerable? Of course, yes. Of course, yes. We have a way. So I will simply go use the same constructor there called as object. On this, I will simply use a property called as define property. With help of define a property, it means I want to define a property for my obj, for my object, obj, comma, the key value name over here is, let's suppose key value name is height. Okay. On the other hand, now it receives an object as the third argument. This define property, number one is that in which object you want to define a property, which is obj. Second value is what is the key that you want to define, height. Third value is an object. In that object, you can pass multiple arguments. Number one is value. This value over here, let's suppose value is what is my height? I would say 6 feet. Done. After that, I can tell it enumerable. Now, in this case, I will simply tell enumerable for this property is false, which means the property that I am actually defining over there is non-enumerable. Which means it's not necessary. Sometimes my agenda might be that if someone implements a loop on this particular object, I don't want this property to be displayed. So in that case, I will make it non-enumerable. And in order to make it non-enumerable, I have a way over there, which is I can define a property such that the property will be height, the value is 6, and it is enumerable. So let's go over there. Let's try to console.log my obj. And in this case, let's try to console it and see what the output is going to be. And you can clearly see over there, even at this point of time, inside my obj, I don't see the property directly. Why? Because it's non-enumerable. But on the other hand, if I go right console.log obj.height, height, understand this very importantly. When I say console.log obj, I don't see that. But on the other hand, even when I loop on it, I don't see that. But if I now go over and execute it, you can clearly see the value is 6, which means there is a property in obj. I am able to access that. That's why when I wrote console.log obj.height, it gave me an output, but it's non-enumerable in nature. I cannot loop around it. Even when I try to visualize the obj directly, I'm not able to see it. Am I clear? Am I clear? Give me a quick confirmation. If this is something new that you have learned, please make sure that you put a like on this video right now. Quickly. I need a quick confirmation in the chat. Very good. Perfect. Very good, right? Now, sometimes, sir, what's the practical use of? Practical use of this is that sometimes we want our property to be hidden. Right? If that is what your intention is, you don't want this property to be displayed in the loop, or you don't want this property to be displayed. In that particular case, we will use enumerable. And this is one of the very important questions related to interviews. Very important questions. Thank you so much, Sumit, for that compliment. Okay, please, one more time. Let's understand one more time, but in a different way. There are a lot of things that you don't know about JavaScript. Lot of things that you don't know. And let me show you one another way over there. Let's suppose I have defined a property over there, which is height, right? And the value is 6, and I have made it enumerable false, right? But now I want to simply make sure that I want to see whether the property is enumerable or not. For that, there's one another function which you might come across, maybe sometimes, maybe not, which is I will simply tell it console.log, which means print. The obj that I have defined, on that I will simply say whether my property is enumerable or not. So I will simply say property. I'm not sure whether this will work or not because it does not give me any, what is this called, suggestion. But I think this is a proper function. Property is enumerable, which means either it will display true or not. So I will simply go right over the, let's suppose, city. So console.log obj property is enumerable. Let me try to console it. I'm not sure whether it still works in JavaScript or not, but yaad aa gaya, to that's why I displayed it. And if I execute, it is true because it's enumerable, right? On the other hand, the property which I defined, which was height, in that particular case, if I execute it, we can clearly see it gives me false. So this is what enumerable means. Enumerable simply means that, see, what is the usage? Someone asked me, sir, what's the practical use? By practical use, we simply can say, what is the usage of it? There's simple answer to it. When we say usage simply means we use enumerable properties for data that should be publicly accessible and iterable. If the property is enumerable, it means the intention me as a developer is that I want this data to be publicly accessible and iterable. But on the other hand, if I want non-enumerable, I will use non-enumerable properties for internal details that should not be exposed in properties enumeration, such as maybe some configuration setting later on, because it's an object. Object means key value pairs. And when we say objects, they are deep level, nested objects, objects in an objects. Maybe some of the properties I don't want to be publicly accessible. Configurations, methods sometimes. In that particular case, I will make them non-enumerable. So non-enumerable mean they will be hidden, and also they will not be iterable. I hope that makes sense. Am I completely clear? Am I completely clear? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Yes or no? I should ask for a break, not from your side, right? Because मैं चला रहा हूं continuously से. Now let's take a break of 10 minutes. बहुत कुछ, आई एग्री, बहुत कुछ देखना भी बाकी है, राइट? So let's take a break of 10 minutes now, okay? And let me start the timer quickly. And after that, we are going to start our class. And please make sure that you do not leave the class no matter what, and stay here up till end. Do not even leave the class in the break. Stay here. Stay here. I will be very happy to see the number continuously. I don't want it to be decreased by 10 or something like that. So let me create 10-minute timer and see you guys exactly after 10 minutes because we have a lot of things to discuss now. Okay, see you guys. Bye. Hey guys, hi everyone, welcome back. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Am I? I think I should be right. Sumit Sharma, if you're still here, please, since no one is sharing the WhatsApp invite link, please reach out to me. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Over there, definitely I will share you the WhatsApp link. Okay. My name is Adfar Rashid. You can find me there as well on LinkedIn. So text me there, remind me there, and then I will share you the WhatsApp link. Don't worry about it. Okay. Sumit Sharma, or anyone else, whoever need WhatsApp link. Okay, I guess we can start our discussion again. So this enum is this right? What does that mean? Definitely. If any new student wants to join, definitely they are always welcome. Okay. Uh, I think Eliraza, you're already in that WhatsApp group, right? So you can simply go to WhatsApp at the top, simply click on add members, and over there you will see invite link. And you can share that invite link with over here in the chat. Or remind me at the last 5 minutes, I will try to share it here. Okay, let's quickly start. Let's quickly understand few other discussions. Now, I have given you a small glimpse of what shallow copy is, what deep copy is, right? With respect to arrays. Now, similarly, over here, we will understand shallow copy and deep copy. I have already explained. Shallow copy means that once you copy the reference of that object, which means if you do a change in one object, it will be reflected in another as well. That's what shallow copy means. Deep copy means one is not going to affect another one. That's what deep copy means. And we have already discussed that as well, right? So let me create a new file here, and I will simply say objects3.js. And let's now understand properly what deep copy and shallow copy is. I will create my object. Let's say I will create an object with the original name. Okay. So let my original is equals to, and in this case, I will simply go write name John. I don't know why it's giving me only John's here, but let's keep name John. And then I will create one other property called as age 30. Okay, very good. Then another property over here called as, let's suppose, city. These three properties, and city is Srinagar. Done. Very good. After that, I want to make a copy of it. Okay, let's make a copy of it. So I will simply say let my shallow copy is equals to my original, like this. And if I in this case try to console.log my shallow copy, you can clearly see if I try to execute it, there is an error. What is the error? The error is there's a variable I extra. Done. And if I go here and now try to execute it, we can clearly see it has created a copy of it. And now we know, since it's a direct assignment operator, it means it's going to be a shallow copy, right? Shallow copy means reference, call by reference. That's what we mean by shallow copy in JavaScript. It's not called a deep copy. Remember that. I might have said that in arrays because I saw your answers. It's not called deep copy, it's called shallow copy. If one change is reflected in another change, another object. For example, if I go here and if I try to make original dot name is equals to what is equals to adfar, and then if I try to execute this particular code here, you can clearly see even though I made a change in original, but it has affected my shallow copy as well. This is what shallow copy means. If I try to make a change in shallow copy dot name and then try to see my original, in that particular case as well, we can clearly see the change is visible here. Wonderful. This is what we mean by call by reference. It's called as shallow copy as well, not deep copy. Remember that. Now, what is the solution to this, guys? Solution is we can simply go here and we can simply wrap this in object and simply separate the key value pairs here. Separate operator. Since we saw the same solution there, we will see same solution here. We can use separate operator. In this case, if I try to execute it now, we can clearly see name is still John. Even though I made a change in shallow copy, but original copy we did not see any effect in original copy. So we have seen a solution to some extent over there, but this solution fails. In my nested properties, let's suppose over there, I have created a property as address. In this address, I have a property as street1. The second key value pair is equals to, let's suppose, maybe over there, village. and village is equals to Hajan. That's where I actually live. So let me write Hajan here. Okay, perfect. So can we all say at this point of time, this is a nested object? Is this a proper object? Of course, it's a proper object. I can define my object. I can define a single property as object as well. I can define a properties function as well, an array as well, and anything over there. Because as we already know, it is dynamic typed. Dynamic typed mean any value can be taken anywhere, right? We have understood that already. Now, since I have implemented original over here properly, let me do one thing now. Inside the shallow copy, I will simply go tell it inside the shallow copy dot address. And over there, go and change the street over there and make the street over there is equals to what? Is equals to, let's suppose Adfar, let's keep Adfar. And now let's see whether it will affect the original or not. So if I try to go over here, and if I try to see the original, you can clearly see it has actually affected the nested over there. It means, okay, when we say separate operators, the shallow copy is converted to deep copy, but using when it's a pure object with only one level. But as soon as we go to nested level object over there, shallow copy is again back. So we understood the limitation, right? This is the limitation, and even this has been asked to me in interviews as well. So what is the solution to this? But before we discuss solution, there's one another way of copying one object into another object, which is called assign method. Assign method, why I discussed enumerable, where from I actually got enumerable discussion, because I started assign method there. Do you remember? I immediately started assign and I said something related to enumerable. That's why I started enumerable discussion. So what does assign mean? Assign mean with help of assign method, you can actually copy object properties of one object into another, but it can only copy enumerable properties. If there's a non-enumerable property, it cannot copy that. Remember this. So object.assign method is not just to copy properties from one object to another object. No, it is actually to copy enumerable properties only. Always remember that. So I will simply say let my shallow copy over here is equals to. In this case, I will simply use the object constructor here, and from that, I will simply use a method called as assign. And over here, I will simply tell it create an empty object in which you will simply put original. Now, will this solve my problem? That's something that we need to understand, right? It will not. And my intention is not to actually give you the solution of a deep copy right now, but actually to make you understand what object.assign is. So what it will do is whatever the enumerated properties of original is, it is going to simply put them in an object and create a new object out of it. Can you explain the object output? What does that mean, Rohit? So it was in the previous case. I will create the same output again and then I will explain it. Don't worry about it. Now let's try to print our shallow copy. So let me simply go write shallow copy. And let's go here and let's try to execute it. As soon as I execute it, you can clearly see it has created a copy of original, placed it in an empty object and created an object out of it. Very good. Which means there's a one way of copying, which is directly using separate operator. We can do that, or directly assignment. We can do that. But also there's an object.assign method as well, with help of which one object or multiple object properties can be put into one object over here, which we have done. But even when we do this, is this a shallow copy or deep copy? That might be the question. If I am the interviewer, I will ask you that question. Hey, when you try to create a copy using object.assign, you create an empty object and put properties in it. Is it a shallow copy or is it a deep copy? The answer is it's a shallow copy, not a deep copy. Why? Because now if I go write shallow copy, and inside that I will simply tell inside shallow copy is address. Go over there and please make a change in street. Done. And in this street, please make street as, let's suppose, Mumbai. Okay. And if I try to execute this code now, we can clearly see it is name John, of course, name John, age 30, of course, city Srinagar, very good. Address street was street 1, but since I have updated it, it will give me Mumbai and village is Hajan, right? It's directly working. But the point that might be very important and interesting to understand here is, will this affect my street address inside my original as well? That's something that we need to understand. Let's see. So I will simply say Control.C, or let me simply go here and let me simply change the original. And in this case, if I try to execute it, you can clearly see my intention was to make a change in the address of shallow copy, the copy that I created with the help of assign method, but it actually has affected my original as well. So since over here as well, it is still doing shallow copying, and which we do not actually want. Do we want this? Sometimes maybe if our agenda is something like that, we can do that. We can do that, but this is not what I want. So how do I resolve this? I will show you a method. You just have to note it down on your pen copy, rough copy. You will not understand it, because for that we have to start a complete new discussion. We just to understand JSON objects, which we will not discuss in today's class. I will give a solution only. So if will give us enumerable false in address, so it will reflect. In that particular case, it will not even be displayed in the output, Prathimesh. So updation is completely different. You can also do one other thing. Remember that since you have asked that question, that has reminded me something else. We have defined object dot define property obj height value this. You can also write one other value here called as writable. Writable means whether you want it to be writable after that, updated or not. So I can simply say false or true. So writable is also another property. Enumerable, writable. There are a lot of things that keep coming in my mind, so that's why this writable is also important. So if you want, once you create a property, if you want it to be enumerable but you don't want it to be writable, in that case also you can do it something like this. So all the things are possible, then all the things are allowed. You want to define a property, you want to make it enumerable or not, make it or not, writable or not, it's completely up to you. There's one another fourth property that we can use. I don't remember that right now, but I will definitely share that. Okay, now let me come back here. And now what is the solution? Okay, the solution, writable means whether once it is created, can it be writable after that? Writable means update, write, can I write on it? Okay, no, I cannot write on it. True, false, completely up to me. Now the solution of this shallow copy actually is not assign method, right? We don't know what assign method will do. Yes, we know it will create a copy, but it will simply copy the enumerable properties, but it will still be shadow copy here. The solution is we will create deep copy. And in order to create a deep copy, we will convert our object into JSON object as of now. If any one of you don't know what JSON object is, it's completely okay. You can ignore it at this point of time. Okay. So we will simply convert our object into JSON. This is how we can convert our normal object into JSON. And if I try to console.log my deep copy, let's see what the output is going to be. So now if I simply go execute it, you can clearly see the difference, at least at this point of time, understand the difference between normal object and JSON object. You can see normal object has keys without double quotes, but JSON object has double quotes, double quotes, double quotes, double quotes, double quotes. At this point of time, just remember that. And later on in another class, maybe after DOM, we will discuss JSON. But you might ask a question, no, sir, this is not the answer. Why? Because we wanted the object to be deep copied, and we don't want a proper JSON object there. No, we don't want that. So that's why I will simply go here and I will simply go and tell it to actually convert the JSON object back into normal object. So JSON.parse. So what I've done is I have simply converted into a string first of all, or into a JSON object, and then convert it back into an object. So it is still an object. And in this case, if I try to execute this, we can clearly see it is actually a proper object, still same object, and it is deep copy. If some of the students don't know what's happening, or it's completely okay right now, just write on your rough copy that this is the solution of deep copy. That's it. Later on, we will understand what stringify is. Later on, we will understand what parse is. But the understanding of deep copy and shallow copy should be clear. Now, if I go here, if I simply tell deep copy dot address dot street, please update it with Mumbai. And then I will simply go try to control X, and let me try to go over and print this deep copy. And if I try to go in the output, we can clearly see it has updated my street into Mumbai. But has it affected my original as well? In this particular case, if I try to execute my original instead of deep copy, if I execute it, we don't see. We see street as street 1. So even if it is a nested as well, in case of nested, this is the solution of deep copy. But if it is not nested in that particular case, we can directly use separate operator. Am I clear? Always and always and always remember. Even I remember by the beginning of this today's class, when we start our class, you said that if we do call by reference, it's called deep copy. No, that's called shallow copy. Deep copy is this. It's a perfect copy of it. One will not affect another one. So what is triple equal in both cases? What does that mean? Like if I try to compare both of them, will it be true? Is that what you mean? If I compare deep copy and original copy, let's try to see that. Let's try to see that. And I will read Prathimesh your question. I'm not sure what that means, but let me try to read it in a second. So I will simply say deep copy equals to original. Let's see what it prints. So if I execute it, we can clearly see it gives me false. It gives me false. It does not give me true. No, in deep copy, it gives me false over there. It will give me false. Because now, although I have made a change, but let me try to not make a change. Let me try to make it like this. Since there was a change, maybe that might be the reason for false. Now, if I execute it, it still gives me false. So deep copy will not give me, in this case, it's going to give me false. Okay. Which method most uses? We don't actually use this method that much. We use it, but very rarely. This is asked in interviews. Okay. In interviews, this will be always asked. Like, for a fresher, explain deep copy, explain shallow copy. It's one of the most important topics in objects. Most important topics. So you should know the methods of solving it. Sir, give one example of enumerable. Add in address as false. Then add in to shallow copy, creating it mess for me. Please clear it, sir. I'm not able to understand that. Do one thing, Prathimesh, related to that. Whatever you mean by it, make it on your VS Code. Then share me on my WhatsApp. I will take a look on it and I will see what the issue is. Okay. Create what you mean, share it on my WhatsApp. I will see what it is, what you mean by in address and all those things. It's creating mess, whatever mess it is, share it to me. I will definitely look at it and I will reach out to you back. Okay. Perfect. I hope we have completely understood two things here. Number one thing is what deep copy and shallow copy is. Number two thing is we have actually understood what object.assign method is. Am I clear? Am I clear with this? Yes or no? Am I clear with this? Yes or no? Done? Done? At this point of time, I would say, Rachit, we have not discussed prototypes, right? We have not discussed constructor functions, factory functions, prototypes, this keyword, all those things. I think we can do this discussion over there, okay? It is going to print me false, no, Rohit. Confusion on enumerable. What is the confusion? Simple definition. Simple. Enumerable means I can iterate on it. I can loop on it. It's visible in front of me. That's it. Now, what is the confusion? I don't think there should be any confusion. Now, let's come back. So these are all the methods that we can discuss in our objects, and we are done with these methods. Now, there's one very important keyword that we actually use in objects. Although, if you ask me, my intention is to define it later on. But let's understand it right now, a little bit of it. Okay. Which is that when we talk about our JavaScript, there's one of the very important keywords which is called this keyword. What does this keyword mean? I will talk. I will talk about that. Shivani says in interview how we need to explain this deep copy. Simply, if anyone asks you what is shallow copy means that you are copying a non-primitive data type into another value or variable over there, but you are actually copying it by reference, by address of another. Which means if I make a change in one object or one data type, it's going to make a change in another as well. That's what we mean by shallow copy. But on the other hand, if I talk about deep copy means not copied by reference, but copy the values into each other. Which means even if I make a change in one, it will not affect the another one. I hope that makes sense. Am I clear? Am I clear? I hope that makes sense. Okay. Now, let's understand one of the very important keywords inside our JavaScript called as this keyword. I will definitely explain this keyword later on in web development as well, because over there it changes. But over here, let's try to understand what it is. At this point of time, if I simply go say console.log this, what does this actually mean? Let's understand that properly. I will execute it, and if I execute, you can clearly see it gives me object. Okay, it gives me object. Don't you think I am here, Rohit, right? So let me give you a better and complete understanding of it. No, why we say Windows object? No, always remember this is what the confusion is actually, and no one clears that. When we talk about this keyword, it's not even when we say I have console.log this, you said Windows object. No, Windows is part of browser. Windows is not part of JavaScript. Remember that. That is the confusion that you guys have. When you create a web development, when a web application, if you open it inside that browser, the tab that you have opened, that is your Windows object. But have I opened it right now in browser? No. So at this point of time, it's not pointing to Windows object. No, because let's go back and let's understand this object properly. The first statement over here, first statement, you can see when I wrote console.log this, it actually printed object. So can I say this keyword is an object? Can I say at least that much? Right, point number one. This keyword is an object. Simple. First thing. That's one thing. And second thing is, this keyword will change its definition based on where you are using it. What does that mean? Let's understand an example of it. I will create an object. So let my obj is equals to, inside this I will simply go say name, and name is equals, let's suppose Adfar, comma, I will simply say age is equals, let's suppose 34, although I'm not 34, so why we need to suppose, I will say 26, and then I will simply say city over here is equals to Srinagar, right? That's what I'm going to say. Done. Simple. Very good. After that, I will create a function in it. Let's suppose the function that I am going to do is I am going to calculate my DOB. That's what I want to do. Listen to my point very clearly. My intention is based on this object. Based on this object, I want to create a method in it. Let me name that method is get DOB. Is a method. It is going to be a function, and that function is simply going to return over there my date of year. Instead of DOB, I will simply say date of year. Now, since I know inside the OBJ my age is 26, so if you know age is 26, based on this particular property, can we determine what my date of year is? Of course, current date minus 26, current date minus object.age, and it's going to give me date of year. Yes or no? Which is, I will simply say 2024 minus my 26. Simple. At this point of time, let me use only numbers. And now I will simply go here and I will simply say console.log obj.get my DOY, and let me call it. And in this case, if I try to execute it, we can clearly see it gives me 1998, and that's what my date of year is. Okay, but I don't want it like this. I simply want it obj.age. Do you think this is a valid operation, guys? Do you think this is a valid operation? Please make sure you like this video right now if you have not already. Do you think this is a valid operation, guys? Do you think it's a valid operation? Of course, yes, right? Yes or no? I'm not seeing anyone typing anything in the chat. Very good. Yes, right? Even in this case as well, if I try to execute it, we can clearly see it is 1998. 1998. So I can clearly understand one thing, that my intention was over here that I wanted to refer to the object over there to which this particular function belonged. My intention was I wanted to refer to an object over there to the object this function belongs, which is obj. And that means whenever we have such functionality, such requirement, that we want to refer to the object it belongs, over there we use this keyword. So this keyword, it is an object, but which object it is referring? It is pointing to the object it refers to, it belongs to. And don't you think it belongs to obj? So even in this case as well, if I try to execute it, we can clearly see it is 1998, which means it has pointed to obj. So this keyword actually means the object it belongs to, wherever it use, I am using it. That's why I said that statement, second statement, this keyword will continuously change its definition. It depends on where you use it, but it will always refer to an object. But which object it's going to refer? It is going to refer an object which that in which it is part of. Refer to the object it belongs to. In that case, it's obj. I hope this is completely clear at this point of time. Am I clear? Am I clear? So if I execute this, you can clearly see it gives me 1998. Until now, am I clear? Every 51 student, every student must reply in the chat. Am I clear? Right? Current instance of an object. Exactly. But that will be the better use of words, Tahir. That's how they have created. We will remember, Manmohan, since Manmohan reminded me, remember when I defined fat arrow functions over there, I told you it has one another difference between with another functions, and I will explain later on. That's what the difference is. But I will talk about later on that, okay? Because that's not the discussion right now. The discussion is we have to understand this keyword. Am I clear until now? Very good. Unfortunately, I can see only 5 to 6 people typing in the chat. Yes, not more than that. Okay, very good. Let's go here and let's try to in Visual Studio Code. This key will not global. Let's understand that. Now see, if you go over here at this line number 1, this keyword pointed to my empty object. But can we also say at that point of time, and that point of time, my this keyword was part of an object, but that was global object? Yes or no? Yes or no? Because we know that when we create a program, an object gets created, and we have seen that in our browser as well. Space, global space, Windows over there. We have seen that. And that's why it actually printed empty. Because for VS Code, it does not have a browser environment. That's why it's empty. That's why it's empty. But let me go inside the browser itself, okay? And let me go here and let me try to open console and let's try to see what actually it will print in this case if I write console.log, this keyword. So let me go write console.log and over here I will write this keyword and I will click enter. Now, when I actually clicked enter, it gave me Windows. And don't we all agree with that? Why? Because we know actually over here, when I will print this, I am printing this directly inside my browser. And at that point of time, this tab is actually represented by an object called as Windows. So can I simply say this keyword represents to the Windows object? Yes or no? Yes or no? Right? So this keyword simply means the object it belongs to refer to that current instance of what's the current instance at which I am using this particular this keyword. If you have understood this, can I right now say, and then even one other point, let me directly create a function. So function add, okay, like this, like this, like this, and I will simply say console.log this keyword. Can you guys tell me at this point of time what will be the output of this if I try to call my add function? What will be the output of this code if I print this keyword inside function? Very good. Yes, if I try to create this function inside my browser, then in that case it will print Windows, Rohit. But if I try to execute it inside JavaScript, VS Code, do we have Windows object over it? No, we do not have such thing, right? So in this case, we have to see what is the object that is represented on line number 12. We don't have any object, which means, but we have, it will go to the global object. That is why if I try to execute it, we can clearly see over here, what is the output? The output is it actually prints object over there, which is global. Simple. It prints the object which is global. I hope this makes sense. It will print global object, right? That's what this keyword means, which means it will continuously change the definition of it. Let's go over it. Let's define one other property here. I will simply say street. In this case, I will simply go and define one of the properties, which is street, or let's say, what is this called? A village. Village is equals to, let's say, Hajan. Done. After that, I will simply go define one of the property. Let's say state Jammu and Kashmir. Very good. Inside this particular case, I will simply go define a function which is print. This is going to be a function like this. Inside that particular function, I'm simply going to say and write console.log this. Now tell me, in this particular case, this object will point to street or this object will point to obj. What do you think? Console in nested function. Confusion. What is the confusion? So in this case, if I go here and try to execute this, understand the code, let me try to execute this code here. And if I try to execute it, we can, although let me try to comment this one. Okay, let me try to comment this one. Although I have not called this function, by the way. Since I have not called print, so let me try to call print, right? Unless and until I don't call this print, how can it console this? So let me go here and let me try to call this print function. And let me try to go over here, obj.street.print, right? City.print. Yes, now I have called it. Now I can see the output. So if I try to execute this, it says unexpected end of input. What is the issue? The issue is object.street.print function. So what is the issue now? It says add/add. It says there is an unexpected. Let me try to remove this code, and also let me give it some other name. Maybe print might be something that it might recognize. Let me clear here and let's try to execute it. And now, perfect. So now over there, you can clearly see this keyword over there. It is consoling. But what is it consoling? It is actually consoling the object over there, which is street. So in this case, this keyword will not actually point to obj, but it will point to the current instance, nearest object it belongs to, and that is street. Does at this point of time, this over there, this particular instance, does it belong to obj or does it belong to street? It belongs to street. So that's why we can clearly see it actually printed street in the output. I hope that makes sense. Now, guys, I have a small confusion over here. Small confusion, which is, why did it print undefined over there in the console, in the output? Undefined. Why did it print undefined? Quickly, I will use that after a second, Rohit, if we use arrow function there. Because when I say console function, it means whatever it's returning. And by default, it's returning undefined. That's why it printed undefined, which means return. What does this function return? That's why it's printing undefined. I hope that's clear. Now, instead of, since Rohit is asking, over here, instead of using function, I will simply go use a fat arrow function like this. So what have I done? I have removed the normal functions and I have implemented fat arrow function. Now the question is, when we say fat arrow function, if I try to execute this, what does it print? What does it print? It prints me empty object. And what is that? This, even I have already explained it. But let me try to explain it again. There is a difference between fat arrow function and normal function, which is that fat arrow function does not have this keyword binded with it, which means it actually went over there. Even someone, if I remember correctly, someone put a proper answer of this in the chat as well, which was it has lexical something. If I remember that, someone said that it has a lexical scope over there when we talk about fat arrow. Confusion, what's the confusion? Let me try to clear the confusion. Is this confusion related to fat arrow functions? Let me try to clear it. Always remember, whenever we talk about normal functions, if I use this keyword over there, it will point to the exact object it belongs to, because this keyword is properly binded with it. This keyword is properly binded with it. But if I talk about fat arrow function, this keyword is not binded with it. We have to bind it. There's a proper method which we can use, which is called a dot bind. We can use polyfill here. We can actually bind our this keyword so that it can point to street over there. We can do that. But by the default in nature of fat arrow functions, it does not have this keyword binded with it. I hope that makes sense. And then there's no confusion. There should be no confusion. But I will definitely, once I teach you bind method, I will show you over there how we can bind our method with it. And I have received a message from one of my students. Sir, finally I got placed at front end developer, sir. That's the message from one of my students. Finally, I have been placed as front end developer. So congratulations to Ankit. Okay. And this is what makes me happy. Like when my students share such messages with me and give a little small credit to me, and when I understand that I have been part of that journey and I have helped in some way, that gives me the real motivation. That is the real money that I will require from you all as well. So I want such kind of message from all of you students. Is that a promise that you will work very hard over there to send me a message like that? Right? And I definitely would want that. Okay. So please work very hard. Rest you can leave on me. See, this is premium content, honestly speaking. Okay. I don't think anyone will give you such content free. But I'm not like, मैं ऐसा नहीं कर रहा हूँ. I want this is for my own self. Okay. But please and please practice, work hard. I have also launched one of the assignments today. I've created an assignment on arrays. Please make sure that you submit that assignment properly. Okay. And I need such a message from all of these 51 students, all of these students who will watch this video later on or right now. Let's come back. So I hope we have understood completely what this keyword is. Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Quick confirmation in the chat. Am I clear with this keyword? What this keyword mean? Am I clear? Yes, Rohit, yes. Am I clear? Perfect. I can see only 4, 5. Yeses in the chat. I need all of the yeses. So with this, we have actually completed our this keyword as well. And with this, we have actually understood what objects are, and we have completed objects. Okay. Yes, there's one another discussion that we need to do related to objects called as object-oriented programming, which we will do later on. Because after we will discuss DOM, then we will discuss asynchronous JavaScript, then we will discuss object-oriented programming. Not that much, but small introduction to that. Okay, because it plays a very important role if we talk about object oriented programming. Very important. Okay, no, they are not same. They are different. The functionality might be same, but they have different syntax. They accept different arguments. Okay, when we implement our programming using functions only, like we try to approach our programming with help of functions only, functional approach. At that point of time, it's called a functional paradigm, functional programming. Okay. So with respect to objects, we have seen different methods. Like let's do a quick overview, quick wrap of it, and then we will close our discussion. I will share you the advanced link as well. Number one is object.assign. Okay. Object.assign actually will create a copy of all the enumerable properties into another object. That's what object.assign is. And it will fail if the source object has no properties that are non-writable or non-enumerable. There's one another. Yes, I remember. I told you when we define a property for it, there's value, there's enumerable, there's writable. There's one another called as configurable. And that's your homework. What configurable means. If I define a property, I will write configurable. What does configurable mean? That's your homework. And you have to give me answers in the doubt session group, the doubt WhatsApp group that we have. Over there, give me answer of it. When we say property is configurable, what does that actually mean? Remember that, put everyone your answers. You can check in internet. You don't have to copy, phrase yourself, but put it in the chat. Then we understood object.freeze. What is the difference between object.freeze and object.assign? Object.freeze simply means I do not want any modification in it. I do not want any property to be added in it. Neither I want it to be deleted. So that's what freeze means. Seal means no new property will be added, but modifications, updations are allowed. That's what actually seal actually means. Then we saw object.keys. It returns array of key over there, all the keys. So if we want to simply divide our object into two parts, array of keys, array of values. Object.keys will return array of keys, object.values will return array of values. On the other hand, we discussed object.entries. It will return key value as an array inside array. We have seen that as well. Then what other property we discussed? We discussed entries, we discussed keys, we discussed values, we discussed assign, we discussed freeze, we discussed seal, we discussed define property, we discussed is enumerable, property is enumerable, we discussed that as well. So this is kind of discussion that we discussed in our objects. Definitely in later classes, definitely in later classes we will come back to objects, but our next uh, discussion that we are going to have is going to be on DOM, document object model. You can automatically understand how that is important. Why? Because eventually our agenda is to create a web application around it, right? And in order to create a web application around it, we should know a way of writing our JavaScript in an web application, then making changes, manipulations. And for that, DOM model is very important. Sir, product based, it depends. It depends completely based on the company. Every company has their own, what we can say is their own prototype, protocols, and accordingly they will ask questions. Okay. Sir, I read about freeze. Defreeze, is it important? What does that mean? Defreeze, I'm not sure. Defreeze. Defreeze maybe. Async function. Share it on my WhatsApp, Rohit. Okay, share it on my WhatsApp because I'm not able to read it. It's simply in two lines and I'm not able to read it. So Rohit, share it on my WhatsApp and then I will give you the option, whatever the answer is. Okay. Perfect. So with this, we have completed our discussion on our objects. We have completed our discussion on arrays. There's one thing which we might have not discussed. Let's discuss quickly, which is called for off loop. Okay. If I go here, let me define an array. Allow me a second only, and then we will close our discussion. I will share the address link, and then we will close our discussion. Let's suppose we have array arr is equals to, it is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Then there's loop. We have seen for in loop, but we have not seen for off loop. So let me discuss for off. I will simply say let my I of arr. And then also I will simply go say console.log I. You will understand the difference between I and for off and for in. So let me simply go say let I or x in arr. Done. And I will simply go at console.log x. So what have I done? I have implemented two loops here. Number one is for off. Number two is for in. So what is the difference? You can automatically visualize the difference once I try to execute it. If I execute it, we can clearly see it gives me 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But on the other hand, if I talk about this particular thing, it gives me the indexes of them. Do you see that? Do you see that? So for of loop will print the values of the array, but when we talk about for in on an array, it will print the indexes of the values. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Let me simply say console.log add the for to put a breakpoint in between. So if I try to execute, we can clearly see above adfer is the values of the array 3, 4, 5, 6. But if I talk about for in on an array, it will give me the indexes of those elements. I hope that makes sense. Okay. For off returns values, for in return indexes. So it means when our intention is to access our array values with the help of their indexes, we will use a for in loop. If our intention and agenda is to loop on an array using the values, in our approach will be using for off loop. Once we complete enough content, Govin, then definitely I will share the, what's it called, MERN interview questions, definitely. So let me share the address link. Please make sure that you submit the address link properly. You give proper feedback and everything over there, and that's what you have to do. So address is very important for our class, right? For mock interview assistance, for any assistance, address is very important. So please share your feedback in the comment section. I have one request only. If you please and please, what I can say is that if you respect my effort, then in that case, I have a simple request. Please like this video right now. Share this video in your status. Share this video in college groups. Share this video in WhatsApp. And also, once this class is completed, then please and please, please and please, put a proper valid comment, whatever the valid comment is, whether it is positive or negative, it does not matter. Please and please make sure that you put a valid comment once this class ends. So let me share the WhatsApp group link as well to all the students who wants to join. Allow me a second. So this is the WhatsApp link. Okay, I have not pasted the code on the GitHub, Anil, deliberately, because I don't want to do that. I want you to practice on your own. I don't want you to copy the code. So if you need code, you can come back to video, see the code, and practice it. I don't want to put it on the GitHub. Later on, once this model ends, then I will put it in the GitHub. Not right now. Google class ID means your Google Gmail name, whatever your Gmail name is, Ali Raza. If your Gmail name is Ali, you will write Ali. Okay, perfect. I guess we can close our discussion now, right? Please share the feedback in the comment section, and also make sure. I have a small request: put a valid comment after that. I think I deserve 30-40 comments, and unfortunately, I see 5 comments, not more than that, which is unfortunate. So please share it, like it, comment it, and I need subscribers. I deserve subscribers. I need subscribers. So please do that. So thank you so much, guys. Bye, everyone. I will keep the session open for next 2-3 minutes so that you can actually fill this Google form. You can copy, click on this Google form. You can join the WhatsApp group. So I will keep the session open. Perfect. Thank you so much, Nancy, for such a feedback, and similar to Govin. Please put these comments, valuable feedback in the comments as well. Perfect. Do we have any questions, guys? Thank you, Chakresh. Thank you so much. Perfect. We will have our next session probably Friday, 6 to 8, probably, and then on Saturday, Sunday as well, hopefully, because there are some things that I might have to do. But Friday we will have our session. Okay. I'm working on that, Ashu and Adil. I will definitely, we will have in between one of these sessions, with help of which we will create a portfolio. Sure, Prathimesh. I will take a look on it. Okay. Definitely. Any other questions? Nothing? Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. Bye, everyone. Good night. Take care. Please practice. And also, I have also created an assignment on Google Classroom. So attempt that. ठीक है ना? अनिल से असली जावास्क्रिप्ट यही से मिला सर. चलो ठीक है, बढ़िया है. Glad. I just want to say thank you so much, Narasima. Thank you so much for the feedback. Okay. It depends. I think the level that I am actually teaching Govind, I'm myself not sure now. Like, if you want me to continue this level, then it will take time. If not, then it's going to be wrapped up in 2 months, not more than that. I'm now going very deep. If you want to continue like that, then it will take 1 or more month than that. Okay. Bye, guys. Good night, and see you in the next class. Bye. Thank you so much. Bye. Good night.